Good morning, everyone. Live from Lot R at Nissan Stadium. It is Titan Game Day Morning Live here on A to Z Sports. I am Luke Worsham, Titans reporter for A to Z Sports Nashville, here with you on this cloudy Sunday morning, but it feels good. We are standing outside of Nissan Stadium. I'm looking right at the Jumbotron, and as you can see behind us, we are hanging out at the Gary Ashton Advantage tailgate here in Lot R. So come say hi to us. We're going to have a great time this morning, breaking down, as we always do, 3 keys to a Titans win this week against the Chiefs. Once we get through those 3 keys, we will talk about our Before we get into the keys, I have to say this, because last week I was one of the few, and perhaps this made me foolish, but I picked the Titans to beat the Bills last week. I was very confident in the Titans beating the Bills, and I do have to say that coming into this game, I am not quite as confident in the Titans beating the Bills, in the Titans beating the Chiefs as I was in the Titans beating the Bills. So I'm really interested to see how this team comes out. But I do think that if they're able to do the 3 things we're going to talk about this morning, they'll give themselves a chance to go 5-2, which would be, of course, a great record to start the season with. All right, key number 1 for Titans win today is that the Titans need to keep up the passing game success that they had against the Bills last week. In the first half against the Bills, it was the same story for the Titans offense as it had been all season, right? You guys know. It was Derrick Henry and pretty much nothing else. There was no flow to the passing game. The few plays that they made were few and far between. And then for whatever reason in the second half, things started to change. Ryan Tannehill at one point had 9 straight completions. And finally, what I have been begging this team to do is they got A.J. Brown involved on offense. And you guys had to be absolutely thrilled finally seeing number 11 and Ryan Tannehill come to life in the second half. So if the Titans want to double down on that win last week against what was an impressive Bills team, they want to come into this game and go 5-2, they're absolutely going to have to someone says frozen. Are we frozen? Oh, so I don't know what that is. But they're going to absolutely have to keep that passing game rhythm up that they had going in to last week's game, specifically in the second half. And so that was something that I wanted to sort of get to the bottom of this week at practice. I talked to or asked a few players, coaches about it. And sort of the overall takeaway was that it is possible to take that momentum that the Titans had in the second half last week and carry it into the second half this week. And I think that the main reason that that's able to happen is because what they built last week was some momentum, right? When I asked A.J. Brown if it's possible to carry over what they had last week, he said, yeah, because you have a little bit of momentum from last week, and you hope to build off of that momentum this week. And my thought on that is that A.J. is absolutely right. The Titans sort of got into a flow last week, which is something that hadn't been the case for the offense at all this year. It had been clunky, disjointed. Nothing really looked great. I'm getting lots of complaints for you that the screen is frozen. I don't know what we're able to do about that. I just turned off Wi-Fi to make sure we're not running off of that. We'll do the best we can, guys. I hope you can still hear me okay, though. The audio is great. All right. So, but yeah, the Titans need to build off of that passing game success because, look, I love Derrick Henry as much as anybody else. Derrick Henry is great. You guys love Derrick Henry. We know what he's able to do. But the Titans aren't going to consistently beat good competition. They're not going to consistently win games if Derrick Henry is all they have. And that's something Todd Downing talked about this week. He said that before the second half of the Bills game, the Titans weren't taking advantage of the opportunities that they had. And Downing said that the identity of this offense is running the football, number 1, but then doing things off of that running game, right? It doesn't just end with Derrick Henry. You have to use Derrick Henry and then do things off of Derrick Henry. That's what they didn't do in the first half against Buffalo. They did do it in the second half against Buffalo. Now we'll look for them to keep that up today, and I think that doing that is a big key to be able to win this game against the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, I see a comment that says that it looks like the stream might be getting back to being a little bit better. We'll monitor that, but we're going to keep trucking along this morning on Titan Game Day Morning Live. We're brought to you on Titan Game Day Morning Live by Two Rivers Ford, by the Gary Ashton team at RE/MAX Advantage, and by DraftKings Sportsbook. So before we get into key number 2, because I really think that for key number 1 to happen, for them to keep that flow in the passing game, key number 2 is going to have to happen as well. We'll get into key number 2 in just 1 second, a concerning trend I think the Titans need to turn around. But first, I want to tell you about our friends at Two Rivers Ford. We talk about this every week with Two Rivers Ford, the fact that they have non-commissioned salespeople. You know what happens when you have commissioned salespeople, what all the other dealerships have? You get pestered, you get harassed, and you get pressured into making a huge financial decision that you might not be entirely comfortable with. Right, buying a car, other than buying a house, is probably the biggest financial decision you're going to make in your life at any given point. And so when you do that, you want to feel comfortable. You want to feel like you have the right information and like you're making a decision that you're prepared to make and that you feel led to make by a good and reliable sales team. And that's what you will get at Two Rivers Ford. Additionally, if you go shop at Two Rivers Ford, you're looking around the lot and there's a particular model or color that you're wanting to get your hands on that they don't have, they'll order it custom for you. That is the Two Rivers Ford guarantee. Non-commissioned salespeople, no pressure to buy. That's why you need to give Two Rivers Ford a shout by calling 800-900-1000. All right, Titan Game Day Morning Live here at Lot R of Nissan Stadium. Let's get into key number 2 to the Titans win today, the concerning trend that the Titans need to reverse, and that is on the injury front. Now, I want to preface this conversation by saying there's nothing the Titans are doing wrong in the injury department. I think that talk about, are they managing guys correctly? Is there something wrong with the training staff? I think you're really getting into like conspiracy theory territory with that kind of stuff. Right? No one's to blame for the fact that the Titans have had all these injuries, but the reality of the situation is they have had a lot of injuries. Another key player, Armani Hooker, who played last week, played well, according to Mike Vrabel, is not going to go today, according to John Glennon of SI.com, because of a groin injury. Over and over again, we're seeing players leave games. You know, what I like to do when I'm covering a game is when a player leaves, I'll just write their number on a legal pad in front of me so that I can keep track of who's out and who's in and do the injured players return and all that. Well, guys, a lot of games this year, I've gotten to the end of the game, there's 5-6 players on that list. That's not normal. That is not normal. That's not happening around the NFL where 5-6 players are leaving every single game with an injury. And again, no one's to blame for this, right? No one's soft. No one's not training properly. But the injuries are piling up for the Titans, and at a certain point, that's got to stop if this team wants to consistently find ways to win. And so that's my key number 2 is the Titans just have to stay healthy. They can't lose anybody else because every single game we're seeing these guys drop out. And I wrote about that this week on A2Csports.com. You can go read that column. But the one question I asked this to Tannehill, I asked it to Vrabel, I asked it to Shane Bowen. Look, I get the next man up mentality. You have to have that, and the Titans are really good at that. But aren't there like logistical problems that happen with injuries? Aren't there things you have to adjust? And all three of them, they prefaced it with, we got to have the next man up mentality. But all three of them said, there are things you have to change logistically when you have injuries. Mike Vrabel said that when Julio Jones went down last week, there were a few plays in the game plan that had to get scrapped. Ryan Tannehill said that it can be tough to keep a flow going on offense when you're having these guys come in and out. But what really stood out to me is what Shane Bowen said when I asked him about that. Shane Bowen said that it becomes really difficult and the coaches kind of have to get together on the sideline and figure things out when you have multiple injuries at one single position. What did the Titans have on Monday Night Football at cornerback? Many injuries at one specific position. This secondary is really beat up because other than Kevin Byard, are you really confident in anybody in the secondary to get the job done today? Right, I'm not the biggest Jackrabbit Janoris Jenkins fan in the world. I don't know that he's going to go up against Tyreek Hill and do anything spectacular. And then besides him, you've got Elijah Molden, who's, I guess, a smart, scrappy guy, but he's not fast. He's not keeping up with Mecole Hardman and Tyreek Hill. And then it's Chris Jackson, if he winds up playing. It's Breon Borders, who's, Mr. Pass Interference that we learned last week. When you have these multiple injuries at one spot, it becomes really difficult to put players in a position to succeed. And again, one more time, no one's to blame for this. Get out of the conspiracy theory realm. But the Titans have got to stay healthy. They can't lose anybody else. And that's something that has to happen for them to beat the Chiefs today. That's key number 2 to a Titans win today against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm Luke Worsham of A to Z Sports, coming to you live from Lot R at Nissan Stadium in the Gary Ashton tailgate here right in front of the end zone at Nissan Stadium. Let me tell you a little bit about Gary Ashton, and I believe you get to meet Gary Ashton later on. Is that right, Buck Rising?
Probably.
All right. But let me tell you a little bit about Buck Rising ahead of that. Let me tell you about Gary Ashton.
That's right.
You'll see Buck Rising in just a minute. Gary Ashton is the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans. And the reason why is because he has the best knowledge, the best experience, and the best intel of anyone in the Nashville real estate market. And these days, if you're looking to buy or sell in the Nashville real estate market, that is exactly what you need, because it's a highly competitive market these days. It's super hot. And when you go into that competitive environment, you need the best information you can get. You need the best competitive advantage you can get. And I'm here to tell you that that competitive advantage is the Gary Ashton team. Gary always says, don't sell without the intel. And that's because he has the intel. He has the competitive advantage that you need if you're going to be buying or selling in the Nashville market. So whether you're looking to buy, whether you're looking to sell, you can get your dream address without the stress with Gary Ashton, the official real estate provider of the Nashville Predators and the Tennessee Titans. Go to GaryAshton.com to get in touch with him and his team. All right, key number 3 to a Titans win today against the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about how the Titans need to stop having injuries. We talked about how the Titans need to keep up their rhythm in the passing game. Let's move to the defense, and let's talk about how the Titans need to get 2 turnovers today against Patrick Mahomes. One of the reasons that the Chiefs' record isn't as good as probably many of us expected it to be, even though they're scoring a lot, is because quarterback Patrick Mahomes has been a lot more turnover prone than we have seen him be in the past. And that's one of the reasons, again, why the Chiefs aren't winning as many games as we thought they would. So that's something that the Titans have to take advantage of. Now, one thing I would expect from the Titans today is something we saw them do a lot of last week, and that's being more zone defense, because that's one of the ways that you can soften the blow of not having some of these guys you typically rely on in the secondary. And one thing about zone defense is it lends itself more to turnovers. And so the Titans, pride themselves typically on being a man coverage team, but that's probably not what we're going to see today. They're going to be playing their second favorite coverage, zone coverage. And so to make up for that, to make up for the fact that they're not embracing their identity because they can't with the injuries that they've had, they've got to take advantage of what zone coverage can do, and that's baiting the quarterback, that's forcing turnovers, because I think with this defense, I don't think you're going to be able to count on them to all day long 3-and-out punt, the good red zone defense even that we saw last week. They're going to have to make some plays to end drives in one play, and I think that getting 2 turnovers from Patrick Mahomes is the way that they can achieve that today. We're going to talk a little bit more about turnovers from Patrick Mahomes in our best bet of the game that we will get to in just one second. That's going to be brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. But one more reminder that we are out here at Lot R at Nissan Stadium. I'm literally looking at the video board in the end zone right now. We're at the Gary Ashton RE/MAX Advantage tailgate. Come say hi, come hang out. They've got games, food, all kinds of fun stuff over here. I'm Luke Worsham, Titans reporter for A to Z Sports.com. All right, our best bet of the game is coming up in just one second. But first, let me tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook and the deal that they've got going on for you right now. Because if you head to DraftKings.com/sportsbook and you use the promo code AZSports, here's what you'll get. You give them that promo code, they will give you a situation where if you put a $1 bet on any NBA team to win straight up, and that team wins, that $1 will become $200 in free bets. And that is only with the promo code A to Z Sports at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. And of course, as always, I will remind you, you must be 21 years or older and present in Tennessee to bet. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Best bet of the game, Patrick Mahomes over half of an interception. That's the line for Patrick Mahomes interceptions today, 0.5. And I think that with the way he's been playing this year, the fact that the Titans are going to be in more zone defense today, and they're probably going to be having their eyes in the backfield, looking at the quarterback, trying to make those big plays to help themselves without having starters in the secondary. I think you can bet on there being at least one Patrick Mahomes turnover today through an interception. So I would hit the over on that because I think you're going to get at least one Patrick Mahomes interception in today's game. All right, Buck, you want to join us?
Why don't we do that? Since our buddy Gary just informed me that he's flying to Vegas today, so we'll just have to be grateful for the Ashton Real Estate Group's hospitality while we chop it up and talk some shop.
I feel like I'm in the way of his head.
Right, you are in the way of his head.
I don't know if I can
duck and weave.
Yeah.
All right.
What's your take? Because last week, or really Monday, we stood out here. I said I thought the Titans were going to beat the Bills. They did. I'm not as confident today.
I am more confident that they would beat the Kansas City Chiefs over the Buffalo Bills.
So you've been duped.
Perhaps, but what I will say to you is the Kansas City Chiefs aren't fooling me, is what is probably the better way to put that, because Patrick Mahomes is still playing at a high level, but he is turning the ball over at a rate unlike any other time in his career. This is an offense that can still threaten you, but is clearly disjointed. He looks uncomfortable in the pocket because this retooled offensive line for Kansas City is more proficient when it comes to run blocking than it is to pass protection. And also, the Titans offense is a particularly wretched matchup for a Chiefs defense that is worst in the league in several categories, particularly when they've played the Bills, the Browns, and the Baltimore Ravens, all three who have a lot of similarities with this particular Titans team.
You know, to talk about the Titans defense going against Mahomes, I wrote a column this week about how the Titans defense is probably better than we've given them credit for and the things that they're doing.
When healthy.
But exactly, I was going to say that all kind of goes out the window today, no? Because no Hooker, no Farley, no Fulton. It's going to be rough in the secondary.
It does have the potential to be. But listen, I mean, the goal was always going to be, hey, they're going to get their yards. I'm not worried about them getting yardage, just as I wasn't worried about them getting yardage or giving up yardage, rather, against the Bills. What I'm concerned about is particularly in the red zone defense and really just the proficiency of the players who are going to be filling in the absence of Fulton and Armani Hooker. Dane Cruikshank, the experience has been underwhelming, I would say, by any stretch of the imagination. Honestly, Chris Jackson played some really, really good snaps against Buffalo, but how healthy is he dealing with a foot injury throughout the course of the last week, maybe a little less than since Monday night. So what I'll say to you is they have to rely on the pass rush, and the pass rush has probably been the best thing about the defenses, which is not something I think I've ever said in my career covering this team.
Yeah, and that is the case, and I think this will be a great game for Bud Dupree to finally come alive now that he seems to maybe be close to fully healthy. I want to talk about the Titans offense too, because we saw the passing game come alive a little bit in the second half last week. A.J. Brown is over his dysentery problems. Julio Jones is probably going to be out there. I think we would be shocked if he wasn't.
He is expected to play.
So is this the game where the Titans passing game really comes to life? Because we saw it do good things in the second half last week off of the play action pass in particular with A.J. Brown. Can they really open it up this week against a defense that really is not very good in the Chiefs defense? 29th in the league in red zone.
Yeah, last in yards per play, 6.7 yards per play they're allowing, and they were giving up 6.12 yards on the ground against the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of things that can be opened up, I do expect them to open it up, but maybe not necessarily in the way that you're thinking, because what stood out to me about the Bills game, Luke, is that there was such a higher percentage of 11 personnel snaps that the Titans played against the Bills. Just the threat of A.J. and Julio out there. Derrick Henry's 76-yard touchdown run came out of 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets. So you spread the defense out, explosive plays come. Maybe not necessarily in the passing game, although they are capable of that in the play-action passing game. But you can create more of those explosives with Derrick or Darrington Evans or Jeremy McNichols with a defense that likes to over-pursue. Steve Spagnuolo loves to blitz. You can set up the screen. You can take advantage of the rushing lanes. And in an ideal world, you'd be able to hit some more of those bang play-action quick passes that they like to A.J. Brown as a crosser.
You know, with a team with tight ends who stink, I don't know why they don't run more 11 personnel.
They're not good. They're not good. Now, we don't know how much the knee is still an issue for Anthony Ferkser, but the production has been underwhelming, rather, for everybody not named Michael Pruitt, and I don't necessarily think that more snaps for Michael Pruitt is going to make Michael Pruitt look like a better player, you know what I'm saying? So I think that the targets and the production that we are accustomed to seeing from Titans tight ends have gone to the running backs in the passing game. Like, that seems to be where Todd Downing's tendencies differ. It's not like they aren't capable, and maybe they aren't this season. We have seen that. We have yet to see them be capable. But it does feel like there's been a shift in terms of tendencies that direction.
I think what I'm most excited about to watch with the Titans on offense is with Chester Rogers out today, we're going to see a lot more AJ and Julio in the slot. And there's already been more AJ in the slot this year than in years past because there's no Adam Humphries. There's no guy that has to be in the slot. I think that's a big matchup advantage for the Titans on offense is when you have those big guys who can move in the slot.
Well, and that's what A.J. Brown was in college at Ole Miss.
Yeah,
He was a giant slot receiver, and that's what they